Huh, look who finally stopped hiding. Look who finally let the mask slip, crack, shatter into 1,000 irreversible pieces. And now they stand frozen, mouths half open, eyes wide, trying to process what they just saw, what they just felt, what they just realized. You were never supposed to let them see this version. You weren't supposed to drop the act, to exist without the filter, without the performance, without that carefully constructed version of yourself that kept them comfortable. But something inside you snapped, didn't it? Something deep within you just gave up on the charade. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was frustration. Or maybe finally you just stopped caring whether they could handle the truth. Now there's no going back, the secret's out. The real you, the raw you, the unfiltered, unedited, uncensored version that's been hidden behind smiles, silence, and small talk is finally standing in plain sight. And they're looking at you like they've just seen a ghost, like they've witnessed something they weren't meant to see. Because they thought they knew you. They thought they had you figured out, filed away, categorized, safe, predictable. But what they just witnessed shattered every single assumption they ever built about who you are. They're not just surprised, they're shaken. They're not just confused, they're terrified. Because the version of you they believed was real was nothing but a costume. You've been walking among them in disguise for far too long, playing the role they needed you to play. The quiet one, the agreeable one, the harmless one who never caused trouble. You let them believe you were soft, simple, easy to read. You let them think your silence meant weakness, that your patience meant you were a pushover. They mistook your kindness for naivety, your calm for emptiness. They built a whole narrative around the idea that you were non-threatening, someone who would never challenge their comfort, their ego, or their position in the hierarchy. And you let them believe it. Not out of fear, but because it was easier. Because revealing your truth would have meant confronting their fear, their envy, and their desperate need to destroy what they don't understand. But that time's over. The mask has fallen. Maybe it slipped in a moment of anger. Maybe it cracked when someone pushed you past your limit. Or maybe you just got tired of pretending and decided to let them see the truth that's been simmering beneath your calm exterior all along. Whatever the trigger, the outcome's the same. They saw it. That flash of intensity, that raw pulse of power. That moment when your eyes changed and your energy shifted. When suddenly they weren't looking at the person they thought they knew. They were staring at something else entirely. Someone who doesn't ask for permission. Someone who doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. Someone who's been holding back not out of fear, but out of mercy. And now they can't unsee it, they can't unknow it. Every word, every glance, every interaction from now on is colored by that revelation. They're speaking more carefully, watching more closely, because they've realized something they never expected to. There's a power within you that no mask could contain. They're measuring every word now, watching their tone, second-guessing every move they make around you, because they finally understand what you've known all along. You were never the person they thought you were. You were something far more dangerous, far more complex, far more powerful. And they missed it completely. They walked past a storm thinking it was a gentle breeze. They stood beside fire and mistook it for a candle. Their arrogance blinded them to what stood before them, and now they're scrambling to rewrite everything they thought they understood about you. Let's talk about what really happened. This moment that has them whispering in confusion, panicking in silence, replaying every past encounter with you like investigators searching for clues they missed. Because this wasn't a slip-up. This wasn't a bad day or a loss of composure. This was a reveal. This was the moment the walls you built to protect your truth finally came crashing down. And what they saw on the other side shook them. Not because you were cruel, violent, or destructive, but because you were real, unfiltered, unapologetically authentic. And that kind of reality terrifies people who've built their lives on illusions. The truth is, while they believed they were observing you, dissecting you, analyzing your every move, you were the one doing the real study. You saw their patterns, their weak spots, their insecurities, their desperate need to feel superior. You watched how they clung to false narratives to shield fragile egos, how they wore masks of confidence and joy while hollow on the inside. You didn't need to expose them, you simply understood them. Because that's what intelligent people do. They watch, they learn, they wait. While they were busy talking, competing, performing for approval, you were becoming something their shallow perception could never comprehend. You were evolving in silence, sharpening in the shadows, building strength in places they couldn't see. And then came the breaking point. Maybe it was a conversation where someone crossed a line, maybe a situation where silence would have meant self-betrayal, or maybe it was just too much pressure finally demanding release. In that instant, you stopped performing, you stopped dimming your energy to keep them comfortable, you let the truth out. And that truth was simple. You are not soft, you are selective. You are not weak, you are disciplined. You are not simple, you are strategic. You've been operating on a higher frequency all along, and they were too distracted by their own noise to notice the signal you've been broadcasting. Now they sit with this revelation, replaying every word, every conversation, every smirk they once thought gave them control. And the realization hits hard. They never had the upper hand. You were always steps ahead, watching, calculating, seeing through their manipulations and half-baked games. You let them think they were clever, that their tricks were working, but you were only observing, quietly giving them enough rope to hang their own illusions. Now they're dealing with the fallout of their own arrogance. Their entire perception of you was built on fiction. They didn't know you, they knew a character they invented to make themselves feel secure. But you were never that character. You were the author the entire time, watching them misread every page. And now that they've glimpsed the real manuscript, the unedited version, they're terrified. Because if they were that wrong about you, what else might they have misjudged? If you could hide that much depth, that much precision, that much power behind a calm smile, then what else are you capable of? That's the question haunting them. That's what keeps them awake at night. And here's the part that really eats them alive. They're not just scared of what they saw. They're scared of what you haven't shown them yet. They're not just afraid of what they saw. They're terrified of what they didn't. They've realized that the part of you they witnessed was just a glimpse, a fraction of what you're truly capable of. And that's what's haunting them. Because if that small, accidental reveal was enough to shake their confidence and rattle their illusion of control, what happens when you stop holding back completely? What happens when you drop every restraint, every filter, every self-imposed limitation you once used to keep the peace? They're starting to understand something uncomfortable, that you've been restraining yourself out of consideration for them. You've been playing at half capacity, maybe even less, just to maintain social harmony. You've been dimming your light so others wouldn't feel small standing beside you. Yet even at that reduced level, you were still more grounded, more powerful, and more real than most people operating at full strength. Now imagine what happens when you decide their comfort is no longer your concern, when you stop apologizing for your magnitude, when you walk in your full power, unfiltered and unapologetic. That's what terrifies them. Not what they've seen, but what you're still hiding. Not what you've said, but what you could say. Not what you've done, but what you could do if you ever stopped playing nice. They got a glimpse behind the curtain and realized the show they thought they were watching was only the trailer. The real feature hasn't even begun. And you've noticed their shift, haven't you? The way their eyes linger longer, the way they hesitate mid-sentence. There's a tension now, a strange mix of respect and fear in their gaze. The casual arrogance they once had, gone. The careless assumptions about how you'd react, dead. They approach you now like someone cautiously studying an animal they don't understand. Is it safe or is it lethal? Should they move closer or back away slowly? That uncertainty eats at them. Listen to how they speak to you now. The hesitation, the pauses, the careful word choices. the jokes they don't risk anymore, the comments they swallow before they reach their lips. They're editing themselves around you in real time because they no longer know the rules. The predictable version of you, the one they could manipulate, dismiss, or guilt into submission, is gone. In your place stands someone unfamiliar, unreadable, uncontrollable, and nothing terrifies people more than the unknown. They can handle enemies they understand. They can confront threats they can label. But you've become an anomaly in their system, an unpredictable variable that breaks their equations. So now they're trying to backtrack. You can see it in their sudden politeness, their forced friendliness, their transparent attempts to rebuild what they destroyed. The ones who dismissed you are now seeking your validation. The ones who ignored you suddenly want to talk. The ones who underestimated you are now trying to regain access, desperate to undo the damage. But what they don't understand is this: you can't put the mask back on once it's been shattered. You can't pretend the revelation never happened. They can't unsee what they saw or unknow what they now understand. The truth is out, suspended in the air between you, permanent, undeniable. And no amount of small talk, fake smiles, or forced normalcy will ever erase that moment when they finally realized who you truly are. They want you to go back, to shrink, to soften, to become the version of yourself that kept them comfortable. The easy version, the agreeable version, the one who didn't disrupt their illusion of control. They crave the mask they once mistook for your face, the smile that never threatened them, the silence that made them feel dominant, the predictability that made them feel safe. They want that person back because the real you, the unveiled you, makes them feel small. The authentic you exposes their artificiality. You standing in truth highlights how much of their life is built on pretense. They're practically begging you, in subtle tones and nervous glances, to hide again, to tuck away that unfiltered power, to suppress that unsettling self-awareness, to return to the performance. But you can't. You won't. Because once you've tasted authenticity, once you've breathed the oxygen of truth, you can't go back to suffocating inside a costume. Once you've experienced what it means to exist without the chains of expectation, pretending becomes a kind of death. You can't go back to pretending to be small when you've seen what it feels like to expand, and that's the part they'll never comprehend. You didn't change. You returned to who you were before the world convinced you to tone it down. You remembered yourself. You reclaimed your voice. You stopped mistaking politeness for peace and tolerance for strength. You finally understood that protecting their comfort was never your responsibility. They're terrified now because the truth hit them harder than they expected. They never actually knew you. Not the real you. Not the one behind the careful smiles and quiet compliance. All those years they thought they were reading you like a book, when they were only skimming the cover. Every assumption, every label, every conclusion they drew about who you were was wrong. And that realization is shattering their confidence in their own perception. If they were this wrong about you, what else have they been wrong about? You've become a glitch in their simulation, a crack in their carefully ordered understanding of reality. Because in their world, people are supposed to be simple, easy to read, easy to predict, easy to categorize. But you've proven the opposite. You've demonstrated that under the surface of every calm demeanor lies infinite depth. Beneath every quiet moment lives entire galaxies of thought, emotion, and power. And that realization is terrifying to those who rely on illusions to feel in control. Your secret was never that you were hiding something broken. It was that you were hiding something immense. You weren't concealing wounds. You were concealing weapons. You weren't suppressing weakness. You were restraining capacity. You weren't avoiding exposure. You were managing the impact of your presence, because deep down, You knew your full self might be too much for people still addicted to mediocrity. You weren't protecting yourself from them. You were protecting them from what your full light might reveal about their own shadows. Now that they've seen it, just a glimpse, they can't stop thinking about it. They're recalculating everything, running mental audits of every past conversation, every time they thought they outsmarted you, every instance where they mistook your silence for surrender. They're realizing you were never oblivious. You were simply uninterested. You saw everything. You just didn't react. And now their thoughts spiral. How much have you been holding back? How much have you been shielding them from? How much have you been shielding yourself from? These questions are haunting them like echoes they can't silence. They're lying awake, revisiting every memory, reinterpreting every exchange with new eyes. That time you stayed quiet during an argument, was that weakness or mercy? That time you walked away, was it fear or the wisdom to avoid wasting energy? That time you smiled when they insulted you, was it passivity or precision? They're realizing now that what they mistook for simplicity was strategy, that your restraint wasn't compliance, it was calculation. Every moment they thought they understood you, they were seeing only the surface, never realizing the depth underneath. Every victory they believed they had over you was permitted, not earned. You weren't playing the same game. They just never noticed you were the one setting the rules. Now their entire perception is unraveling. Every story they told themselves about you is collapsing under the weight of this new awareness. They're confronting the terrifying truth that they never actually knew what you were capable of. And that uncertainty, the possibility that there's still more they haven't seen, is what keeps them on edge. Because if this version of you was just a restrained fraction, what happens when you finally operate without limitation? They're realizing the truth too late. You've crossed the threshold. There's no going back, no mask to wear, no box big enough to contain you anymore. You've become the living embodiment of what they fear most, a person who can no longer be controlled, defined, or diminished. A person who knows their power and uses it with precision. And now, every time they look at you, they're not seeing who you were, they're seeing what you become. A reminder that authenticity isn't rebellion, it's liberation. The foundation they built their understanding of you on was nothing but sand, fragile, temporary, and destined to collapse under the weight of truth. Every assumption they made was built on convenience, not accuracy. Every judgment they passed was born from projection, not perception. They mistook fragments for the full picture, illusions for insight. They looked at reflections in shallow water and convinced themselves they'd seen the ocean. But now that the surface has shattered, they're standing in the wreckage of their own misunderstanding, staring at the ruins of the false certainty they built around you. They're trying desperately to piece it together, who you actually are, what just happened, and how they failed to see it coming. But they can't, because you've stopped following the script they wrote for you. You're no longer predictable, no longer confined to their expectations, no longer functioning as a background character in their narrative. You've walked off their stage entirely, and they're left fumbling in confusion, clutching at roles that no longer exist. You're not playing by their rules anymore. You're not abiding by their imagined limitations. You've broken free from the psychological cage they built around you, a cage disguised as approval, acceptance, or belonging. You've stepped into something that terrifies them, true freedom. Not the kind of freedom that's granted, conditional, or negotiated, but the kind that takes itself unapologetically. The kind that doesn't ask for permission, validation, or understanding. That kind of freedom is revolutionary. It doesn't just change the person who claims it. It sends shockwaves through every structure built on conformity. Freedom is contagious, it's magnetic, it's dangerous. When one person breaks the invisible contract of compliance, others start to feel the cracks in their own cages. When one person drops the mask, others begin to suffocate inside theirs. Your authenticity has become a virus in a world addicted to pretending. You've become dangerous not because of what you might do to them, but because of what you might awaken within them. You represent possibility. You embody what they've been too afraid to confront in themselves. Your courage to be real challenges their dependence on illusion. Your authenticity exposes their imitation. Your unapologetic existence highlights how much of their life is performance, and how little of it is truth. That's what they fear most. Not your power, not your words, not even your presence, but your symbolism. You've become a walking reminder that there's another way to live. You've become proof that the system of control they rely on, social, emotional, psychological, only works as long as everyone agrees to play along. You stop playing, and suddenly, everything they built feels unstable. And now they're scrambling. They want you to hide again, to shrink, to put the mask back on and pretend this never happened. They want you to go back to being safe, predictable, manageable. They want to restore the hierarchy, to reestablish the illusion that they understand you, that they have you figured out. Because if they can convince themselves you're still the same, they don't have to face the uncomfortable truth that you've outgrown them. But you can't go back. You won't go back. You've crossed a threshold that only moves forward. Once you've tasted what it feels like to live without the performance, to breathe without the weight of pretending, the mask becomes unbearable. Once you've felt the stillness that comes from being aligned with truth, chaos disguised as approval loses its power. Once you've experienced authenticity, imitation feels like poison. You've felt the freedom of walking through life unarmored, unfiltered, real, and there's no undoing that. You've felt what it's like to no longer need to explain, justify, or minimize your existence. That kind of liberation rewires your entire being. It changes how you think, how you speak, how you move through the world. The act of pretending, once effortless, now feels heavy and dishonest. The act of silence, once protective, now feels like betrayal. You've outgrown the comfort of invisibility. And while they cling to their narratives, you're writing a new one. This isn't an ending, it's a beginning. The moment the mask shattered wasn't the destruction of your identity, it was the birth of your truth. This is the point where you stop being the character in someone else's play and become the author of your own story. The one where you decide who you are and what you'll become. The one where you stop existing in grayscale and start radiating in color. Yes, it's terrifying. Growth always is. Freedom comes with a cost. The loss of those who preferred your silence. The discomfort of standing alone for a while. The grief of shedding layers that once kept you safe. But every ending disguised as loss is really an opening into something greater. The ones who can't stand your light were never meant to walk beside you in it. The ones who only loved the masked version of you were never capable of loving the truth. This is your liberation day, the day you finally understand that peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from being real. The day you realize your worth isn't negotiable. The day you stop editing yourself to be digestible to people still addicted to illusions. You've stepped into a new dimension of self-awareness, and no amount of nostalgia for your old self can drag you back. Let them talk, let them question, let them wonder who you've become. The truth is, you haven't become someone new. You've finally remembered who you were all along. They're meeting you for the first time. But you have been waiting for this version of yourself your entire life. And now that you're here, fully, unapologetically, powerfully, you're not asking for space anymore. You're taking it. So yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's uncertain. Yes, it's going to cost you. But the price of authenticity is nothing compared to the cost of pretending. You've stepped into your real story now. And that story doesn't end with fear. It begins with truth, power, and the unshakable peace that comes when the mask is gone and the soul finally breathes free. Some relationships were never meant to survive the version of you that's finally free. They were built on the false foundation of who you pretended to be, on the filtered, watered-down version of your truth that you projected to keep the peace. They loved your mask, not your mind. They loved your silence, not your strength. They loved your softness when it served their comfort, not when it came from compassion. They loved how you absorbed their storms, how you folded yourself smaller so they could stand taller. But that love was conditional. It depended entirely on you staying hidden, predictable, and easy to manage. Now that the mask has shattered, they don't know what to do with you. They stare at you like a stranger, because in a way, you are. The real you was buried beneath years of performance and self-restraint, and when that truth rises, it exposes every lie they built their connection on. They'll say you changed. They'll say fame, confidence, or independence got to your head. But you didn't change. You just stopped bending. You stopped performing exhaustion in the name of loyalty. You stopped pretending that tolerating disrespect was kindness. You stopped mistaking shrinking for humility. And because of that, many of those bonds will crumble. Some will fade quietly. Others will end in flames. The ones who benefited from your passivity will feel betrayed when you start enforcing boundaries. The ones who thrived on your guilt will be furious when it stops working. The ones who fed on your attention will grow resentful when you choose yourself instead of them. It will feel lonely at first, like the silence after a long storm. But that silence isn't emptiness, it's clarity. The noise leaving your life is just the sound of illusions breaking. And in their place, you gain something extraordinary. You gain freedom. The kind of freedom that doesn't apologize for existing. You gain authenticity, the ability to speak and act without consulting someone else's comfort first. You gain power, the quiet, grounded kind that doesn't need to dominate to be undeniable. You gain self-respect, the kind that makes your reflection feel like an ally again. You gain clarity, the ability to tell the difference between those who love your essence and those who love your compliance. You gain peace, not the fragile kind that depends on keeping others happy, but the deep, lasting kind that comes from being congruent with your own truth. You'll start to see life differently. You'll notice how many of your old habits were built on survival, not joy. You'll see how many conversations were really performances, how many friendships were based on mutual fear of being alone rather than genuine connection. You'll realize how often you said yes when your soul was screaming no. And that realization will sting, but it will also heal. Because you can't build an authentic future on an inauthentic past. And yes, people will distance themselves. That's inevitable. The ones who fed off your silence will despise your voice. The ones who needed you to play small will shrink from your expansion. The ones who define themselves as stronger than you will panic when you meet them eye to eye. Let them go. Let them drift toward new stages where they can keep rehearsing the same old play. You're not auditioning anymore. Their exit is not your loss, it's your cleansing. You are no longer a mirror reflecting back their comfort. You are a truth that reveals their discomfort. You are a reminder that self-betrayal is not love and that boundaries are not cruelty. And those who can't handle that truth were never aligned with your destiny in the first place. But for every person who leaves, someone new will appear. Someone who recognizes the frequency you now emit. Because when you stop pretending, you send out a signal only the genuine can hear, like calls to like. Truth calls to truth. Authenticity attracts authenticity. The real ones, those who have burned their own masks, will find you effortlessly. They won't need you to be less. They'll celebrate that you're more. They won't flinch at your intensity. They'll match it. They won't call you too much. They'll call you finally. These people are rare but real. They are the ones who can sit with your silence without needing to fill it, who can hold your fire without being burned, who can see your shadows and still reach for your light. These are your people, the kind who won't drain you to feel alive, but remind you that being alive was never something to apologize for. These are the connections that will root you when life shakes, the friendships that will thrive in truth instead of die in pretense. So when the whispers start, when they say you've changed, when they mock your growth, when they beg you to go back to being the version that made them feel important, smile. Because you know the truth. They're not mourning you. They're mourning their control. They miss the version of you that was convenient, the one who absorbed their chaos and called it compassion. They miss the version who dimmed their brilliance so no one else would feel insecure, but that version is gone, and she's not coming back. You're not hiding anymore. You're not performing anymore. You're not negotiating your worth for belonging anymore. You've burned the mask, deleted the script, and walked off the stage. You've stopped trying to be liked by people who don't even like themselves. You've stopped seeking validation from the very ones who doubted you. You've stopped pretending that playing small was noble. From now on, they get the real thing. The unfiltered, unedited, unpolished you. The version that breathes truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable. And if that's too much, if your honesty threatens their illusions, if your light blinds the ones who still prefer the dark, they know exactly where the door is. You're not chasing. You're not explaining. You're not shrinking to fit into rooms you've already outgrown. Because this is your evolution, this is your rebirth, the moment you stop trying to be understood and start choosing to be seen. The moment you stop waiting for permission to exist and start living as though you are the permission. The moment you realize that losing people who only loved your disguise is not loss, it's deliverance. You finally stepped into your full power, and the world will adjust. Those who were meant to see you will. Those who were meant to walk beside you will. And those who can't handle the truth of you will fade, not because you push them out, but because your vibration no longer accommodates pretense. You've stopped surviving as fragments and started living as wholeness. Welcome to the version of you that doesn't apologize for being real. Welcome to your authentic life, the one you've been building quietly beneath every false smile and every swallowed word. This is the freedom you were born for, and you'll never trade it again. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the Enlighten Wisdom.